And we are live. Good morning, everybody. Or good afternoon,
Good
if you are
morning.
already in your afternoon. Welcome to the next in our series of Personalizing the Guest Journey. Do check out our LinkedIn page for those that you might have missed. We've had some brilliant sessions over the past few weeks. They've been just so many good learnings from each of them. And I am absolutely delighted to have two, not just one, but two guests today. Callum, who is our CEO of Ovlo, and the reason that he's joining will become clear quite quickly. But also, I am delighted to welcome Helena from the Emblem in Prague.
Thank you for having
Who's
me.
one of our pleasure. It's so good to have you on. I think when we initially talked and had this discussion, there was a really clear and particular pain point of what you were doing at the hotel. So I'm really excited to talk to you about that today. But I think what would be great, Helena, just to kick us off, if you wouldn't mind just introducing yourself, telling us a little about the Emblem would be brilliant.
Definitely. So, as you said, I'm Helena. I'm the general manager and sales manager for the Emblem Prague Hotel, which is a 59-room, so a small boutique property in the city center of Prague. We're a family-run hotel. And right from the beginning, when the hotel opened way back in 2013, we knew that we wanted to create something new. We did not want to copy the hotels that were already existing. That's the reason why, straight from the beginning, we've always had online check-in, we've always had online checkouts, including payment methods, of course. We always strived into personalizing the guest journeys. We've always not had a reception desk. So when you walk to the hotel, and Callum, you stayed with us, so I'm sure you can remember, we actually greet people in the lobby on the couch or in the comfortable settees. We offer people a cup of coffee. And since they have filled out all of the online check-ins and all of the boring paperwork, if you ask me, we really have the time to spend with them and customize our recommendations according to their expectations, to their needs, to things like if it's their first time in Prague or if they've been to Prague several times. And it's precisely these reasons why I really love working with you guys, because you are making this much easier, not for the guests when they can actually, take our recommendations, which are personalized for them, and start planning before they get to the hotel. But then it's a really good tool for my staff if a guest comes up to them and is asking them what there is to do, what can I go and see. I'm into contemporary art, I'm into classical art. I've been to Prague 5 times. I'm in Prague for the first time. So that's what we try to make different, because to me, every single guest is different. And so we try to teach, or I try to teach my staff that that's the approach they need to take towards the guests that are actually staying with us. So not two recommendations are always the same. So that's about the sum up of the hotel in respect of how we use and how we collaborate with you guys as well.
That's brilliant.
It is like you say. I think everyone's different. Everyone has a different, reason to travel. They're with their own group and they have their own interests, and the city changes a lot as well. Places come and go. The weather plays a big factor. Everything in there is super dynamic. As you mentioned, I was lucky enough to come in and stay in the hotel recently. So when we discussed having you on to join us for this session, I was quite eager to join, and obviously thank you for your great hospitality on one hand, and to share a little bit about my experience as well. Me and my partner at the start of the year were looking to go somewhere, and we really were open to going somewhere new that neither of us had been before, and neither of us had been to Prague. So obviously knew about your hotel and was really interested to come and see it and explore the city. So no, we had a fantastic weekend. We were there, I think just Friday and Saturday night. It's an incredible city. The people were fantastic. We got an Uber from the airport, and we had a really smiley, nice, happy driver. Short trip to the hotel, and then it was quite interesting. We never actually got back in a taxi or any kind of transport. Really, the hotel is super central, and we just walked everywhere. We got a lot of steps in every day. We used the service that we provide. We used to find some great things to do and places to go. Some new favorites. We went to Champanera, which was a nice wine bar, and had some tapas and things there, and found a really interesting neighborhood. Went to a place called Sandwich Rodeo, which was a really interesting spot. So we had a great weekend. But I think what really interested me is you shared with us before that this is something you've strived to do for a long time, is give personalized recommendations. It's a challenging thing to do. Like we talked about, people are everyone is different, and then you've got seasonality and how the city changes as well. Can you share a little bit on how you tried to do that in the past, and so what the challenges were with doing it?
Well, in the past, the way we used to do it, which was time consuming, but mainly heavily reliant on one of my staff actually doing it, which which of course, the human factor always, when it needs to come into it, can sometimes be slightly challenging. In the past, what we used to do is we used to send all of the guests a small survey to fill out, where they basically told us, is it your first time coming in? Are you coming in for fun, for leisure, for business? What are your interests? We implemented for them to actually tell us what kind of restaurants or bars they liked back home, so that we can get the gist and the feeling of what kind of places they would like in Prague. We ask them questions, if they are more into wine drinking, if they are more into beer drinking, if they are in Prague because they love art and therefore they want more art recommendations, or if essentially they want to be the classical tourist and see Prague for its historical sites. And when we received this survey, that was received by my concierge, he then had to send them like a PDF form, which we called personal itinerary, where he essentially, based on those answers, suggested the places to see, the events that are happening during the guest stay, which he got from another employee of mine who would be putting all of these things together. So of course, some things would be stable. We would have like a 4 or 5 pages of restaurants which were categorized according to if it's vegan, vegetarian, Italian, fine dining, or whatever. And then she would also put together a list of events which were happening for the next 3 months, 4 months out, which was incredibly time consuming. But the worst thing is I found out that, again, because there's that human factor involved and people do like to make things easier, half of the times the staff weren't even looking at that piece of information, which actually took an incredible amount of time for somebody to create. And therefore, when I then pulled out some of these personal itineraries, I saw that my staff are offering essentially the same thing and the same thing out. And the only time it would differ is if somebody would say, I'm a vegan or I'm a vegetarian, then that's when the restaurants would differ somewhat. But even then, I would find old events on those sheets, which like old art exhibitions, which were no longer existing for like 6 months and stuff like that. So I got obviously very mad, to put it very politely. And that's when we started actually talking together, because prior to that, I also had a couple of other companies. I'm not sure if I want to be bad mouthing them, so I won't say who they were. One of them is actually not in existence any longer. And even though these companies would kind of replace it, it still wasn't personalized enough for me. And even if it was, they would still publish and recommend places that, for example, I would never offer to my guests. And even if they come and ask me now to make a recommendation for one of these restaurants or to get tickets to one of these shows, I teach my staff to actually try to tell them that yes, we can secure it for you, but it's not the best, actually, far from it. And then when I came across you guys, it just seemed that all of these challenges I was having, all of these worries I was having, all of these things where I wasn't at the end reaching my goal of being really personalized towards every single of my guests, then you kind of made that happen. You really made, I know that even now when me and James talked about a couple of places, which of course jump up on the recommendations, but I know thanks to James that I can take them off. And even though they would be maybe available for somebody else, like for another hotel, I know that they wouldn't appear as a recommendation for our guests. It's really personalized. I love the fact that I can create my own guide and actually create, where I want to send guests personally to. So that's kind of like replacing the owner's recommendations, which again, in the past, we used to do by letter and by handing those letters out to our guests. So it all seems to fall in pieces. It also saves quite a lot of time for the colleague of mine who prior would need to actually draft everything by hand, because all of these events are in the system. And for my staff, it's also much easier to use because it's categorized, it's there in front of them, and it's not on 4 or 5 pages of an Excel that they need to take a magnifying glass to actually properly see what's there.
I think there's there's so many different facets and details to getting this right, and I think the obvious one and the kind of the theme of this conversation as well around personalization. So we have to make sure that there's attributes as opposed to filters, like you're a vegan. That's more of a filter. But for us, having a sort of attribute-based system where we know a place is maybe it's romantic, maybe it's good when it's sunny because they have an outside space. Lots of attributes like that allow us to display the right thing, and that's the sort of the fun bit. But then you also mentioned things like opening hours or does this place still exist? And that's the kind of thing our system has to check every day because it's just fundamental, and it's very hard for anyone to get that kind of information right if they're doing it manually. So even if you're the best concierge in the world, are you able to stay on top of everything all the time? It's difficult. So we work in some environments, particularly sort of apart hotel environments where there might be no staff and you're fully automating, and we work in some environments where actually it's empowering people and try to help people do the best job they can do and make sure the human touch is still there and still really important, and how can we help them be better. I think that was the other interesting thing you said there around the human aspect. And we work, for example, with a chain hotel that's a 5-star hotel in London. They have 4 concierges, but I think the oldest is 62 or so, and the youngest is about 22. And so they have very different opinions and different views on what good looks like as well. So that you've then got that sort of that bias that comes into things. Whereas benefit obviously of technology is it maybe learns your interests and it doesn't have any of its own opinions really. So it's easier perhaps to give the right recommendation.
Precisely.
What
and, for me, it's also having like a personalized concierge program together with a physical concierge. For me, actually, it's starting to be a huge selling point because, of course, the hotel is a 5-star luxury hotel in the city center. So for me, my main goal is, of course, to attract, your virtuoso travel agents and travel agents which concentrate and which specialize in luxury travel. And for them, I do need to stand out from your 4 seasons. I have Fairmont opening up, I think next month or whatever. W Hotel has just opened up. It's all new properties. They're beyond beautiful, like in the decor that they have chosen. And for me, the only way to really stand out from these type of properties is by service, because we are same location, okay, I'm 20%, a little bit cheaper, but for those clientele, it doesn't really play any role whatsoever. My rooms are much smaller to what they are. So the only way I can tell them, listen, stay with us and don't stay at the W, is when they know that the level of service they will receive is beyond what they've ever imagined and what they ever came across. And that's where I really value our partnership, because I know that that's something that will really help me a great deal to achieve that.
Yeah, you can't beat it. It's really the most memorable thing, and the first impression. Like you said, someone greeting you, with a smile, and how's your morning going? As soon as you walk in the door, there's really no substitute for that.
Precisely.
And you also, you have a quite unique proposition. The joys of being sort of an independent hotel, being able to kind of do things your own way. One of those things is the rooftop. You have a hot tub on the roof, which we enjoyed on the Saturday night as it was getting dark, with nice views and things. What was the sort of what was the inspiration for that, or what
kind of, but the inspiration for that is that actually we originally wanted to have a swimming pool up there, but unfortunately the static engineer plus the local heritage trust, they were really against that. So that's why it ended up being a jacuzzi. But for looking in hindsight, maybe I should have created luxury suites, or maybe kind of like a rooftop bar in that area, and placed the spa in the basement. But then again, every single hotel does that,
Yeah.
So again, it's something being a little bit different, having that open space for the spa, which I think is much better than having it stacked in a basement. But financially, I think if it would be the other way around, it would have worked out. It would have worked out better in hindsight now, but it's too late to do anything about it. It would be too complicated to switch the technology.
But I think, like you say, it's standing out and doing something different that particularly the bigger guys aren't going to do. So it gives you something distinct.
Mm.
Yeah, you guys are making me want to jump on the airplanes immediately. No, this has been great so far, Helena. Thank you so much. A couple of questions on my side. Prague as a destination, I think, you mentioned there's some new hotel supply coming in there, but it really is. Do you find yourself as one of the other parts of standing out from that crowd, having to market the destination as well as your own hotel to draw people to your?
I think so. I mean, luckily, the Prague city tourism has changed the marketing for Prague a lot. So as it used to be always marketed as, come to Prague for the cheap beer and the beautiful girls, it's now being marketed for its cultural heritage and for, our museums, the live concerts that we have, the beautiful history that's in Prague and in its surroundings. So that's helping, but it's still perceived as an Eastern European destination with cheap prices. So sometimes I do struggle to explain to travel agents why the pricing of my hotel is the same as of a hotel in Vienna or in another European destination. And I think that is this perception of Prague being for, cheap tourists because it's cheap, that needs to really, really change. But as I said, the Prague city tourism and the Czech tourism are doing a great deal to actually rebuild the image of the city as such.
And that's something I think is really interesting, because I think the destination itself, it is I've been there a few times, and it is the most amazing city. And obviously that's what Ovlo is all about, is matching the city and the destination and the right things to the right people. But I think the really hard part of that battle in changing the perception falls to the tourism board. Are they quite interactive with the hotels, and do you guys participate?
They've started to be a lot more interactive. They, for example, also created something called the official partnership, which we are a part of. And based on that partnership, which is limited to about 30 hotels or something like that, they are offering exclusive tours that we as hotels can then offer to our guests, which again is perfect because it's things that they otherwise would not be able to book on their own. They can only book it when they're staying in the hotel and only through the hotel. And it's things, for, I don't know, like the Prague astronomical clock or things up in the Prague castle, which are usually closed off to the members of the public. So that's again something which is very special, and by which we can actually extend that to our guests and again create something unique for them.
Yeah, I do think that the hospitality part of that partnership is so important, because if you think of your hotel and you do an amazing job of firstly using Ovlo, obviously, but also you do an amazing job of promoting all of the local bits and pieces that are going on.
We try to.
And I think if you can times that out by 10 hotels and have everyone promote the same messaging and be a bit more consistent, you can make the move to change the perception of the destination, and that's the idea. I wanted to ask about your tech stack, obviously being very forward-looking, which is lovely. I know we're in hospitality, which has some terrible legacy technology still out there. What are the other systems that you use, and is there anything out there at the moment that you particularly think, other than Ovlo, of course, that you think, oh, this is great, or what other technology are you using at the hotel?
Well, we are using, of course, we have Muse as our PMS, which is a company that actually started at the Emblem Hotel.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we were the first. We were the first property. Sometimes I like to call ourselves the guinea pig of Muse. But of course, they've grown tremendously since then. Then we have other things like we use Oki for room upgrades and for additional items that the guests can purchase. We are looking into applications like FlexiKeeping to improve communication between the front desk and the housekeeping and the maintenance staff, and to also ease the processes in which rooms are cleaned and requests of guests are processed, and technical, issues like a light bulb not working and stuff like that are repaired in real time and a little bit quicker to what it has been at this moment. So that's again, using technology and using almost artificial intelligence to speed up and to improve these processes. I'm looking into mobile keys so that we can actually replace the classical old locks with mobile keys. And I think there's more that I have in my mind, but I think I need to take it step by step so that I don't overdo it.
But yeah, it must be overwhelming.
Yeah.
You probably get bombarded as well with. I think James and I are probably guilty of being on the other side of that, but obviously there's a lot of solutions out there that are probably vying for your attention. So to actually keep an eye on the market,
I know what I need at the hotel. And I think aside from the mobile keys, which I'm essentially looking into, again, because it's some technological improvement, it will help me with in-guest messaging platform as well. I also need to look into it because the locks we have at this moment are going out of business and they are not doing actually new ones. So it's something I need to deal with anyhow to make sure that I will allow our guests to enter the room.
Yeah, that is important. I think, digital keys is similar to, you've kind of touched on this with check-in as well, but it's giving people the option, because I know that with Muse, you're able to send out a sort of, the form to complete pre-arrival to speed that process up, and people, they could do that, or they could choose not to do it and go the old-fashioned route. And it's probably the same with keys. So I think a lot of the strength of implementing this kind of technology is doing it to give people flexibility and choice. You're not forcing them to do the full automation route. You're just giving them some choice.
Precisely.
Yeah, and it should help the staff at the same time.
Yeah, just to pick up on that, I think it is a really interesting in a luxury setting, and this has come up in 2 of our previous episodes, one with the W and the other one with PPHE. I think some customers really love that personal touch. They love to sit down, and I love it. I would love to come to your hotel and have coffee in the reception. That to me is the best way to check in. Like, I'm definitely going to need coffee. I'm definitely going to need to sit down. I love that. But there are times when I'm traveling for business where it's late. If I could have my key delivered digitally and I could just go straight to my room, and it was simple, clear, and obvious. And I think there's a big sort of balance to be struck there between the two things, because the personal touch will never go. It will never go away. It will always be so important. When I was talking to Callum about his stay, it was just one of the things we talked through is when you arrived, how did it work, and we've just discussed it. But I think now more than ever, we do have to give guests the choice. Do you want to interact with the person, get your key, physical key, and go to the room, or would you prefer to receive it as a digital? So with PPHE, with their digital key, when you arrive close to the hotel, if you've got their app installed, the key will appear. If you checked in online, your key will appear, and you can go straight to your room. And I think there's a very fine sort of balance between these two things, but I think we always have to deliver the personal touch. It's an interesting one. I was going to ask, actually, just interesting. So you with Muse since the very, very beginning. It must have changed an awful lot in that time.
Well, of course, yeah. Muse, the way they started and to what they are now is, like a two completely different edge of the spectrum. But I've always knew right from the beginning that they were going to be successful, and that's the right system to have for our hotel.
Why? I suppose it's a big question, but why is that, or what was the case before Muse that I suppose made you realize there was such a room to improve that?
Was all of these, I don't want to call them bad systems, but systems, they were, and I know some of them, have moved from the static version to the cloud version. But for example, the fact that Muse was on a cloud basis was something, of course, which was important to me, because that meant I could have access it from anywhere around the world.
Yeah.
Even from the weekend, being somewhere in my cottage or being somewhere kind of like in the park and whatever. I knew that the way that they were thinking and that the way that they wanted to actually move from the static way everything has been done would be perfect, and it would save the time in order for us to concentrate on the hotel guests, which at the end of the day is what makes the money.
That's really interesting.
Brilliant. Oh, bless you. You okay?
Yeah.
Just grab some water. Okay, thank you. Callum, did you have any other questions to run through before we round up?
No, I think this has been a really enjoyable conversation. So Helena, thank you very much for joining us, and thank you again for your wonderful hospitality. We had a great time, and I will be I'll be encouraging James to hop on a flight and come see the hotel. I think you mentioned the astronomical clock a few minutes ago, and it was funny that there's an astronomical clock in the town square in Prague, and every hour, I think it is, there's a sort of display. And when we arrived in the city, the hotel early at 9 o'clock or so, we went for a walk. We saw it, we'd read about it, so we knew that was going to happen, but it was maybe 9:30. So we thought, okay, well, we won't see it now. We'll see it next time. And we walked past that clock about 20 times, not on the hour. We just kept missing it. Every time we walked past it,
did you see it? Did you end up seeing it at the end or not?
We made sure we did. So we were leaving on Sunday. I think we had a late flight, so we went for a drink. We found a bar across the road from the clock, and we thought might be a tourist trap, and might be expensive, might not be very good, but we were quite dedicated. So we went and we sat there. It was actually quite nice. We sat there, we had a drink, and we waited, and we watched it. So we did get to see it in the end, but it was maybe the 25th attempt, I think, to see it. But no, it's a fantastic city. So glad to have got to come. And for us, it's if we can sort of come and see the hotels that we work with and experience them. That's what it's all about, and meeting the staff and seeing how they interact with guests. And really well done, because it's a fantastic property, really great hotel.
It means a lot to me. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, Helena, this has been brilliant. Thank you so much for joining us with half an hour of your time and the prep time as well. We really appreciate it. And I will try and ditch my children and get over to the hotel as soon as possible. But thank you, we appreciate it. And yeah, we'll end the stream there.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, guys.